Hey everyone, and welcome back. We had a listener question come in about CRPGs, and honestly, it's one I've kind of been wondering about myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what does make a game a CRPG these days? Because you see that tag on Steam, and it can feel about as accurate as, I don't know, my internal compass after getting off a long flight.
Huh. Yeah, it is kind of head scratcher when you think about it. You
Yeah.
think it'd be simple, but the lines are definitely getting blurrier.
Totally. So to put it to the test, we took a deep dive into 5 of the newest releases tagged CRPG on Steam.
Okay.
And let me tell you, we found everything from like penguin wrangling to, well, we'll get to that.
Right.
Get ready for some surprises.
I am intrigued. Where do we start?
First up is Penguin Helper.
Okay.
You'd think with a name like that, it's all going to be like cute and cuddly,
Right.
right? And the visuals are adorable, I'll give it that.
Yeah.
But it's also got this like weirdly philosophical vibe going on, almost like a meditation app, but disguised as a penguin rescue mission.
Interesting.
You're literally helping these penguins stand back up after.
Right.
Wait for it. Airplanes. Throw them off balance. Airplanes.
Yeah.
And it's not just a silly premise either.
No.
No. The reviews mention like finding inner peace, connecting with nature. One player even said it helped them cope with a news story about, a penguin tragedy.
Oh, wow.
It really makes you think about how we even go about categorizing games.
Yeah.
Can something be like therapeutic and a challenge at the same time?
That's a really good point.
And honestly, after reading those reviews, I kind of want to give it a try.
Yeah.
Maybe there is some hidden wisdom in those wobbly penguins.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Speaking of unexpected challenges, though,
Yeah.
let's shift gears from penguin rescues to the high-stakes world of dot parking.
Hard parking. I mean, the title doesn't exactly scream epic adventure or anything.
Right, but with a 93% positive rating, this bare-bones game about parking a car has clearly struck a chord with people.
Yeah.
I mean, one player even called it the best pound ever spent.
Wow.
What I find fascinating is that the core gameplay loop seems incredibly simple from the description,
Yeah.
yet people are raving about its addictive qualities.
It really does make you wonder, like, what makes a game so compelling? Is it the complexity, or is it that satisfaction of, like, mastering something that seems, kind of mundane?
Yeah.
Perhaps hard parking is tapping into our, like, primal desire for order, for control, even in something as, every day as just parking a car.
That's interesting.
What do you think?
Maybe it is. It's like that universality of the struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't had a parking mishap
Yeah.
or two? Or,
More than I'd like to admit, probably.
right. But to dedicate a whole game to it,
Yeah.
that's like either genius or madness.
It's a fine line.
Maybe both. Maybe both.
Maybe both.
And speaking of unexpected settings, our next game takes us from like the driver's seat to the penalty spot.
The what?
Yeah, penalty challenge.
Oh, okay.
On the surface, it sounds pretty straightforward, right?
I mean, kick the ball into the goal, right?
Exactly. But the reviews reveal it might be a little bit more than that.
Really?
Yeah. One player even compared it to those like classic arcade sports games, the kind that were easy to pick up but like brutally difficult to master.
Oh, okay. I see.
And it's not just like, your average soccer field.
Oh,
No. We're talking snowmen, Christmas trees, beach umbrellas.
wow. They went all out on this one.
Yeah. It's like the developers took that core concept, the penalty shootout, and injected it with this like huge dose of whimsy. It's like almost like a children's storybook, but, come to life.
That's a very specific but evocative image you've painted there.
That's what we aim for here on the deep dive.
Indeed, indeed. I have to admit, it does sound kind of fun. I'm
Yeah.
not usually one for sports games, but that combination of like the skill-based gameplay and those kind of quirky visuals,
Yeah.
surprisingly appealing.
And honestly, that seems to be like a running theme here with these CRPGs.
Yes.
These games. They might not fit the like traditional mold of what we think of when we hear CRPG, but they offer this really unique blend of elements that, clearly draws players in.
Yeah. I see.
From those like meditative qualities of Penguin Helper
Right.
to that unexpected satisfaction of hard parking.
Right.
There's this sense of discovery with all of them,
Yeah.
like finding something special in the most unexpected of places.
It's like I don't know, it's like we're redefining what it even means to role play these days,
Yeah.
to immerse ourselves in a digital world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not always about, slaying dragons and saving kingdoms.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about, I don't know, maybe it's about finding your zen while rescuing penguins or like conquering your parking demons.
Or maybe even just maybe nailing that perfect penalty kick amidst like a winter wonderland, right?
And that brings us rather neatly to a game that, while still kind of defying an easy categorization, definitely leans into a more, let's say, familiar narrative structure.
Okay.
4.1.60 Co. A text-based thriller set in, get this, 1960s Soviet Russia.
Ooh, okay. This one immediately piqued my interest, I gotta say.
Did it now?
Yeah. It's based on, get this, a real-life mystery. The disappearance of a Moscow subway train. And get this, the game actually warns players up front that there might not be a happy ending.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, talk about setting the mood.
No kidding. That's a far cry from rescuing penguins, that's for sure.
Right.
But what I find interesting about this one is the way it incorporates player choice.
Okay.
You have, like, multiple paths, different endings, and they all seem to be shaped by your decisions. And those decisions have weight, you know? Especially given that historical backdrop and the game's emphasis on realism.
And let's not forget those 300 exquisite color CG images, as they're described.
Oh, yeah, they mentioned that.
For a text-based game, they really went all out on the visuals, apparently.
It really speaks to how developers are finding, these innovative new ways to tell stories. Even within what you'd think are kind of limited formats, they're pushing the boundaries of what we expect from a certain genre.
And in this case, a visual novel, essentially, right?
Exactly. And those CRPG elements, the choices, the consequences, they add another layer of depth, making the experience even more, I don't know, more personal.
More impactful.
More impactful, yeah. And speaking of pushing boundaries, our final game, Superpower Man, takes us from the historical mystery of Soviet Russia to, well, the world of superheroes.
Of course, naturally.
And yet again, we see this fascinating, like, blend of genres,
Yeah.
The description mentions adventure, casual gameplay simulation, sports, and, of course, CRPG.
So, everything.
Pretty much. It's like they took, like, elements from every corner of the gaming world and just, I don't know, threw them all into a blender.
And somehow it works. Like, the reviews, they were a little mixed on the music.
Oh, yeah.
But they were, like, overwhelmingly positive about the gameplay itself.
Interesting.
One player even compared it to shogi, which is, like, Japanese chess.
Wow, I would not have seen that coming.
It's fascinating how a single game can evoke such, like, wildly different comparisons from people.
Right. It really is. It really is. And it just speaks to that subjective nature of genre,
Totally.
The idea that what, like, truly resonates with one player might not land at all with another.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's about finding those experiences that speak to you, regardless of how they're labeled, how they're marketed, whatever.
Exactly. So I guess what I'm getting at is this has been, like, a wild ride.
It has.
We started with this, like, seemingly simple question, right?
What makes a CRPG?
Exactly. And somehow we've ended up in this whirlwind of, like, penguins and parking spots and penalty kicks.
Don't forget the Soviet mysteries.
Oh, yeah, and Soviet mysteries. And then, just to top it all off, some superheroes.
It really highlights something, I think, something crucial about, about how games are evolving.
What's that?
These genre labels.
Yeah.
They're helpful, right? Like, as a starting point.
Sure.
But they don't always capture the full picture anymore.
He's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole or something,
Exactly. Or, like, a penguin in a phone booth, or...
There you go. That's the one.
Because what we've seen across these 5 very different games is that those, like, those traditional markers of a CRPG, right? The swords and the dungeons and the, the intricate skill trees and all.
Right.
That's not necessarily what, like, defines the experience anymore.
So then what is the common thread,
Yeah.
If a penguin rescue simulator
Right.
and, like, a Soviet-era mystery can both be considered CRPGs, then what are we even looking at here, really?
Well, if we like zoom out for a second, look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
I think it comes down to a sense of agency.
Agency, okay.
The ability to make choices that matter,
Okay.
Choices that shape the game world, however quirky or unexpected that world might be.
And it's not just about the choices themselves, though, right?
No, you're right.
It's about, like, what happens because of those choices.
The consequences.
Yeah, like in Penguin Helper, maybe those penguins just, like, fall right back over if you don't use the right strategy to pick them up.
Exactly, exactly.
And then in, what was it, 4.1.60 Co., your decisions, they could, like, actually determine someone's fate.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That sense of consequence of your actions having weight.
Yeah.
That's something that, like, really resonates with players,
Totally.
regardless of the genre.
It's like that feeling you get when you're, like, really invested in a good book.
Yeah.
Or a movie, you know?
Right.
And you're just, like, on the edge of your seat, just like,
Right.
what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
But with a game, you're not just along for the ride, you know?
No, exactly.
You're the one in the driver's seat.
You're holding the controller.
Making those choices.
Yes. And that, I think that's at the heart of what makes all these games, you know?
Okay.
Despite their, like, wildly different themes, wildly different mechanics,
Right.
what makes them all ultimately CRPGs?
Interesting.
It's about the journey, the choices, the consequences. And ultimately, you know, it's that feeling that you, the player, you are an active participant in how the story unfolds.
So where does this leave CRPGs in the future then?
Ooh, that's the question, isn't it?
Are we, like, moving away from those like, more traditional definitions for good?
It's exciting to think about, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Like, imagine a world where a genre just becomes, like, fluid.
Yeah.
Where developers are free to blend elements from anything, experiment without these, like, you know, these artificial limitations.
Without boundaries.
Without boundaries, exactly.
I like it.
Where a game about, like, I don't know, baking a cake
Okay.
can have the depth and complexity of, like, you know, your classic RPG, right? With branching storylines and meaningful choices that, like, determine the fate of your, I don't know, your sourdough starter.
Now that is a game I can get behind. A culinary RPG where your biggest enemy is a soggy bottom. Sign me up.
But in all seriousness, I think what we're seeing here, it's a shift
Okay.
in how games are made and how we experience them, you know?
Yeah.
It's no longer about, like, fitting neatly into these, like, predefined boxes.
Right.
It's about embracing creativity and innovation and those, like, you know,
Yeah.
the ever-expanding possibilities of interactive storytelling.
I love it. And that is a wrap on another deep dive.
Another one for the books.
We really went there today, didn't we? From the absurd to the profound.
We really did.
All in the name of, you know, trying to unravel the mystery of the mighty CRPG.
The white whale.
The white whale.
Yeah.
Big thanks to you, the listeners, for submitting such a, like, thought-provoking question.
It's always a pleasure to, you know, to dive into these topics with you.
And remember, next time you're browsing for a game, you know, don't be afraid to venture outside that comfort zone. Try something new.
You never know what you'll find.
You never know what you might find. You might even uncover a hidden gem.
That's right. That's right.
Even if it is disguised as, like, you know, a penguin rescue mission or a parking simulator or whatever.
Keep up in mind.
Until next time, keep those controllers hunting and those minds open to new possibilities. We'll catch you all next time.